You don't always have to be thinking of the latest, greatest tagline for your business. It's about how do you really connect with your audience. Welcome to Clothing Culture, a fashion industry podcast at the intersection of technology and innovation. I'm Emily Lane.
And I'm Bret Schnitker. We speak with experts and disruptors who are moving the industry forward and discuss solutions to real industry challenges.
Clothing Culture is produced by Stars Design Group, a global design and production house with more than 30 years of experience. Welcome back to another episode of Clothing Culture. Today we are back at the bar. Cheers, Bret.
Cheers.
Back at the bar. I guess we should be doing that after the episode. But
okay.
Why not
Does that mean
start?
I can't drink right now?
Yeah.
I have to wait.
No, we're at the bar because we like to keep the bar talks a little bit more fun and easy breezy because we're addressing questions that come in from you, our awesome audience.
And every time we answer a question, we got to do a shot.
It's going to be a long night.
There's 50 questions, so good luck.
Well, actually, this is a refresh of a conversation that started 5 seasons ago. We had a conversation about branding and marketing, kind of core fundamentals of that. Today, we're really going to be focusing in on what's evolved since then, because believe it or not, it has been 5 years since we've had this conversation.
Way back then.
There has, and there have been some shifts. And so for those people who are looking to evolve their brand or want to make sure that the marketing that they're putting out is relevant in today's culture, this is going to be a great episode for you, as well as those who are starting to ideate around building a new brand, what's resonating today. And so let's talk about it, Bret.
What are the new trends that have happened since way back when like branding was new and fresh 5 years ago?
Well, I'm going to break this down into 3 different categories because there's been shifts that are driven for different reasons. So we'll start with aesthetics and then move into technology, some of the technologies that's come into play that's shifted how a brand resonates with consumers. And then, of course, social-driven trends. Those are really starting to play a much bigger role than they were 5 years ago or so.
So aesthetics have always played a big role, but how has it changed?
Aesthetics lately have gotten much more monochromatic and much more minimalistic in design. So where previously you would see contrast colors or complementary colors coming into play, we're seeing that really lean down, and people are leaning into, my 5 shades of red or my 5 shades of green or my 5 shades of purple, and really leaning in.
It's because color's expensive. They're reducing their budget in a tight economy.
I think it's about keeping it simple.
Are we going back to black and white?
I'm not seeing that. Now, that's not to say that that's not going to connect with certain brands, but right now, people are leaning into the simplicity of saying, hey, this kind of color palette really represents me. This is the emotion that I am going for. This is how I want to connect with my audience. And, you think about that, think like Target, you always see that red, and that is Target, and so we can be looking at seeing layers of those colors in order to connect somebody visually to a brand.
So tech is always evolving at light speed, even with AI right now.
It is, but we're not done talking aesthetics, Bret.
I'm impatient. I want to go for my next drink. Okay, keep talking about
You gotta hold
aesthetics.
tight. You do, because we just talked about colors. We're also looking at things like crisp and clean with regards to design layouts and fonts and so forth. So really focusing in on the design elements that are intentionally being presented to represent the message. So it's really about focusing in on that, keeping things a little bit more minimal and clean. That being said, we're seeing some kind of fun sassiness pop in too. So there's some brands that are really leaning in on joy to connect with their audience.
Sassy joy, is there such a thing?
Think about it. There's a wonderful brand that we're familiar with called Shinesty. Their whole motto is mild to wild,
Yeah.
and everything that they use to message around really embodies that. So, and then, you see that in other brands like Who Gives a Crap? They're doing wonderful packaging with very fun colors that really grab the attention. I mean, on something like toilet paper, how can we make it fun and exciting? And so that's just another way that people are trying to connect with their audience and build that emotional connection. You see that come through in animated moments too. Like you'll see in
Animated toilet paper? That's crazy. That would be
that one
fun.
really works for you, doesn't it? No, like you see things on websites where certain graphic elements will be in motion. It might be a little animated character at your signature line on your email response. Like there's just all these little things that keep things moving to, again, it's all about emotional connection.
And word animation too. You're seeing some of that happening even in byline, which is interesting.
Absolutely. My favorite thing, though, to talk about is sonic branding. And this is, of course, aligning your brand with the sound. And think about like the old age of jingles being the thing, da, 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 you know exactly what brand that is, or, like a good neighbor, safe farm is there, like all these jingles, that was
sonic branding.
That's sonic branding. But now it's going a little further too. There's things like
beer companies with just a belch.
Or
yeah. I guess that's better than just a belch. Right?
Well, I think when you plug in
certain cultures, a belch is a big sign.
It's true. It's a compliment. Compliment to the chef.
Yeah.
You think you plug in your iPhone, it makes that certain sound, that perfect pitch A. Everybody knows that's the sound of your iPhone. So immediately, every time you hear that sound, guess what? You think of that brand. It's really smart. But we're seeing, again, back to that having fun with branding, we're seeing companies do a lot of that ASMR kind of content. So capturing really hyper-focused sound to create a listening experience, which I think is very entertaining.
It's
being
very
somebody that loves
interesting, that whole
sound.
trend. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I know you're dying to ask the next question.
I'm just dying to get a drink, so why don't I cue you up and tee you up on tech?
Yes.
We talked about it just before, tech's moving at light speed.
It is. And, AI, it's definitely playing a huge role in what we're seeing. And in our podcast, we've had some fantastic conversations with AI leaders that have brought some of that personalization in.
And in the future, we're just going to have interview with AI. We're not even having people on anymore. It's just
true.
ChatGPT. What do you think?
Who's to say we're not AI?
Whoa, that's crazy. Could be.
It could be. Well, AI has really come in to foster a very tailored experience. It's so, you go to that website, you're actually getting your own unique experience based on your own behaviors. You're getting recommendations on items that you might like based on, again, your shopping behaviors. And even things like customized messaging are coming forward. We're really seeing it really is about tailoring that shopping experience. And, AI is weighing in other places too. Beyond the whole user experience, it's also helping businesses on the other side be smarter about what they're investing in from an inventory standpoint. It's helping them with predictive trend analysis. So that way it's like, you don't have to guess what kind of patterns are going to come into play, what kind of colors are going to come into play in the next couple of seasons, a year and a half down the road. AI is really here to help. So it's a good and a bad, right? People are scared about AI taking the humanity out of our industry, but it can also help make smarter buying decisions and actually improve the customer experience.
So what about the last category?
The socially
driven, social commerce, social community.
I think that's a really good segue. So as we're talking about the impact of AI and people being threatened by computers taking over our world, people at the same time are really desiring that personal human touch. And some of that is what we saw in the aesthetic side of it, like really trying to create that emotional connection. That human touch has become ever more important. And honestly, I believe this really began 5 years ago. Think COVID, when everybody was locked away. Everyone was missing that opportunity to connect with people. So I see the human touch as being a big part of the marketing story right now. It's promoting products that are handmade, and it's telling the story of how that product came together. It's showing the people and the hands behind it. It's showing how did this come into existence. It's also being very authentic and truthful about your message. It's, if it could be in a humorous tone or in a very serious concerns tone, whatever is authentic to your brand, it really comes down to being human. The other thing that is becoming more important to consumers is the sustainability angle, eco-conscious. We've had conversations in the past about the challenges with promoting sustainability and the limitations of our industry. There's been some wonderful evolution in the last couple of years, and there are options that are out there. So people want to connect with brands they know that are doing better by the planet, better by their people, better by their business. So people, planet, profit. And so having strong messaging that aligns with that does pay off. 57% of consumers are willing to change their purchasing habits based on the impact of products in the environment. So it is moving a lot of people and can move the needle in a big way. Also, speaking of moving the needle, brand activism is another trend. People want to see that the brand stands up for something more than, hey, we create really beautiful clothes. Like they want to know that they are behind this cause or that cause and understand why, and they want to be a part of that community. So making sure to select that brand that really feels like a meaningful partnership is wise, and being authentic about it. You don't want to be insincere about what you're doing. And then finally, that insincere side of things that made me think of imperfect marketing. That's another trend that we're seeing. Not that insincere is imperfect. It's sincerely imperfect. Yeah. Imperfect marketing is, again, it just ties down to authenticity. It's seeing the roughness around the edges. It's that behind the scenes content that isn't overly edited and perfect. It isn't the smoothing of the wrinkles that we wish was happening on our screens of this podcast,
Note to producer.
Smooth the forehead lines, face, please. Yeah. The truth of it is that 51% of consumers believe that marketing content is missing authenticity. 90% of the consumers say, I really want more of it. So there's a big demand for imperfect marketing and being true.
And that's the reason I look so crappy on here, because I'm trying to be very authentic.
You're right on trend. Yes. And finally, that last piece is almost, again, a harken back to the impact of COVID and how that has shifted marketing and branding. People want community. And so more like never before, it's about being able to connect with the brand, have the one-on-one experience. And there are a lot of different ways of doing that. It is through, we've talked about pop-ups, we've talked about, creating things like wonderful magazines that are curated and are more than just telling your story. You're curating other stories that align with your brand and showcase talent. And, you're producing content that people honestly really, truly want. Sharing customer stories, having workshops, sharing information. All of these things helped build stronger community behind your brand, and people expect it, people want it. And it's a really successful model for your business. You don't always have to be thinking of the latest, greatest tagline for your business. It's about how do you really connect with your audience?
And the worse tagline, the better, I guess.
Well,
with
the most imperfect, the better, for
Yes.
sure. Yeah.
How has the definition of branding changed over these years?
Well, I think actually what I was just talking about really speaks to some of that. Think about the days of the Mad Men. They're up there having their cocktail at a bar, and they're, thinking about what's going to be the thing that's going to move and connect people. What's that catchy phrase? And, it used to come down to that. And they would tell people what they want, and people would buy it because of that amazing slogan and that amazing graphic. But that's not what it is today. It's really about, creating community, sharing stories, interacting with your audience, and emotionally, truly connecting, not in a forced way. So it's quite a difference. We used to be told what to think, and now people are more actively thinking. Yay.
Well, hopefully. This has always been a real big tightrope, and especially today, I think we as a nation and the world, maybe we're pulled in so many different directions. There's a lot of distance being created, where, unity was a big conversation before. So, cultural relevancy within your people group, your tribe or whatever, how does a brand stay culturally relevant with all this kind of chaos going on?
Boy, it can be tricky because you can get yourself in trouble, but you also want to be there for your community. So, I think listening actively to your audience and being, showing the fact that you care, ask the questions, open up the rapport, engage with people in a more of a real-time conversation or on social platforms, share that you're thinking about these things too, get feedback. That helps make sure that you're in touch and they know that you're listening, aligning yourself with the social values that, as we talked about before, that are that one, align with your brand, but also speak to your customer. Is this about sustainability? Is it about feeding poor children? Is it about helping immigrants? Is it about education? Whatever your cause or causes are, making sure that you're standing behind them and supporting them truly and wholly. And then, it's kind of like what you talk about with technology and apparel. It's evolution, not revolution. Don't change your brand overnight. Just be constantly keeping your pulse on things and listening and staying engaged.
You talked about Mad Men in those days.
Yes.
Whenever advertising occurred back then, it was for a company, it was a pretty serious investment, right?
It was.
And you only had a certain kind of form of medium that would sell the brand. How has social media democratized branding?
Oh, I mean, you're right. Before, the model used to be you had to have a bunch of money. You'd spend the money, you'd hopefully get that great idea, and you'd connect with your audience. It was this top-down broadcast model.
Right.
Now it's more two-way. It's a conversation. It's shared. It's participatory. It's, small brands can build a big audience without huge budgets by, connecting with the right audience through micro-influencers, macro-influencers, having, some sort of meme that takes off, engaging people for shared content and reviews. And there's just so many ways that you can engage your audience now, and everybody's on this kind of shared platform, and it builds trust, it builds community, it shows authenticity. It's all those things that consumers now have a bigger voice in a brand than they've ever had. They can, by them sharing their voice, it actually can buoy a brand's success. And it can go the other way too, So, you listen to your customers.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, you talked a little bit about, this whole, I guess, uneasy tension that one would have with being a brand steward, trying to keep a consistent message with your brand. How do you balance this whole thing and stay consistent while adapting to trends because things are changing around you.
Yeah.
Yet brand building is all about the repetitive message
Right.
in your community.
Yeah. That part of that whole evolution, not revolution story is, one, you stay consistent to your core values, who you are as a brand. What is your mission? This is something that we practice every year
Yeah.
for our own business to make sure that we are keeping top of mind what we stand for, what's important to us, what our goals are, who our audience is, how do we connect with our audience, what are the problems we solve for our audience. Making sure as a brand that you are actively thinking about these things and whatever you're producing stays in touch with that. This is, if you go way too far off, that's when things start to feel disconnected and you start confusing people. So any evolution that you do should be weighed against your core foundation of who you are. And every year, some of that's going to shift.
Okay. What do successful emerging brands do differently than, let's say, the big legacy ones?
Well, a lot of them are starting more organically. So, they're starting in a community first environment. And we just captured a bar talk here talking about mom and pop shops.
Yeah.
And, the value there is you're building community connections, you're providing opportunity for brands to come and see your product, get your hands on product, start developing a relationship with them. So having a community first mindset, one in representation for your product, but also being there for your community. The other thing is showing transparency behind your process. You're a new brand. This is a new idea. You've decided to take the plunge and build something new for people. Tell your story. Why are you doing this? What's going to be unique about about what you're offering? Take people along for the ride. It's telling your story is a very powerful way to build connection. We've talked about leveraging micro influencers and user-generated content. So that's definitely something that we're seeing a lot of emerging brands take advantage of. And, it's really about being aware of what's resonating with your audience. It's reacting. You got to be doing that A/B split testing when you're doing any kind of marketing, so that you can kind of get a gauge on what days and times work for you, what kind of messages are working for you better. Some of those older practices that were done early on in the digital marketing time still apply. You don't just throw a bunch of stuff out there and hope that people come. You've got to really watch and be engaged and be aware and make decisions based on what you're seeing. But ultimately, it's about being authentic and being there for your community.
Makes sense. It's strange. We live, I don't know what percentage, but it's got to be a big percentage of our lives behind our phones, on our screens, et cetera. We don't, so many of us, good for the ones that don't, good for the ones that can put it down and walk away. But so many of us live on our phones all the time. We experience everything through. So what's the future of branding look like with this whole digital first world that we're dealing
Well,
with?
I mean, you're certainly right. AI is going to continue to play a better role. And the smarter that AI gets, I would think your marketing is going to get smarter as well.
Keep talking. I'm playing Candy Crush.
That being said, more personalization will need to come into play because I think people are going to get really savvy. Like once they realize that AI is the one that's talking to them, they're going to want to make sure that.
Will they know?
I don't know.
It's pretty sophisticated today.
It is sophisticated, but with that hopefully comes more personalization and at least an experience that people feel they're being heard and connected with. And so that's the other part of it. It's about, really having experience-driven branding and marketing, being more immersive with your customer. That whole decentralized thing that we've talked about, really, really allowing a two-way conversation with your customer. I anticipate that to continue playing a big role. And then, transparency and ethical practices. I think people care right now in a time where conflict feels like it's on the rise. People want comfort. They want community. And they want to know that what they're getting behind matters.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were on the call with a potential new client out of California this week, and she was shocked that she was speaking to human beings.
Right.
She was like, every other company I'm going to, I have automated questions. They automate and walk me through steps, and I never could talk to a human being. Oh my God, I'm talking to human beings.
Yes. How can we help you?
Yes,
Let us
right.
help you build our brand. Yeah. No.
Yeah, it's so bizarre to hear that. Like,
Yeah, it is. You're right. And, so I think keeping it real, keeping that human touch is key.
Wonderful. Thanks, Emily.
Yeah. Hey, this was fun. Now we can cheers. Ready?
Cheers.
All right. Cheers.
These aren't real. These are AI generated.
Thank you for joining us today. It's your turn to do the cheers. Do not forget to subscribe to stay apprised of upcoming episodes.